We're beginning the 10th Avatar section of The Phoenix by Manly P. Hall. Mondas Karamchand Gandhi, with all his goats, milk loincloths, and handlooms and inner voices, threatens to dissipate with one simple gesture the whole illusional structure of the modern selfishness and exploitation. A land of myth and legend, India has produced a reality more amazing than any of her fables. The holy man sits in the councils of state. An emancipated aesthetic confounds the worldly wise. From the bruised and battered body of his Jane shines out of the leading spirit of the world, by a curious twist of fate, a man who calls himself a beggar dominates a generation which worships wealth alone. A humble Hindu has been exalted above the princes of the earth. In an age of materiality, and a little Bombay lawyer has become a god. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Brahman's book of Psalms, the Lord of Love, gazing down from his high throne beyond the heavens, uttered those words of prophetic splendor which for countless centuries have comforted and assured the heart of Asia. When virtue fails upon the earth, then I come forth. 9 times has virtue failed, and 9 times has the preserver concealed his glory within a moral shape and redeemed his people. Again, virtue fails. Once more, integrity is at the nadir. Even now, civilization is destroying itself in a frenzy of exploitation and abuse. The worms of destruction are gnawing at the roots of the world tree. The very essence of the race is threatened, and unless mankind is turned from its present course by some spiritual impulse, some rational urge, some new vision, the whole order of which we are a part must inevitably perish in a holocaust of competition and war. This is the Kali Yuga, the Black Age, the period of universal dissolution, when the bonds which hold orders and systems together rot away and their parts fall back into chaos. The world is oppressed with a great fear. The wing of impending disaster overshadows the earth. An epoch is closing. Old laws and premises are insufficient. Thrones topple and nations perish in the void. The rule of gold is at an end. Now must come the golden rule. In the confusion occasioned by the crash of empire, men have raised their arms to the heavens and turned their eyes to the hills from whence cometh their help. The old scriptures are once more remembered. The need is great. Will the Lord of the world come as he did before? Will the prophecy of the 10th Avatar be fulfilled when he who is the substance of the world's desire shall come riding down the sky upon a white horse, crowned with power and bringing with him the hosts of wisdom? Does Vishnu hear the calling of the nations? Does he incline himself to plea of his suffering world? Will he come? Mother India has brought forth another son. The dusty roads where the gods have trod and walked by another saint. Who is this little dark-skinned man with a white cloth and Who is this little man, dark-skinned man, with a white cloth about his middle, a shawl over his head, and under his arm a spinning wheel? There are some in India who think they have sensed the mystery of the great magician. They have bedecked his pictures with flowers, and offered prayers to this beggar saint who comes to them in spirit of the ancient law. Is Mahatma Gandhi, the heavenly mendicant for whom Asia has waited so long? Some believe, some wonder, and some do not know. Yet no man will deny that behind the frail exterior of this emancipator there stands an indomitable spirit, nor can any deny that though this humble Hindu a great part of the world speaks, even Gandhi's enemies admit that he is a champion of human integrity, the brute power of the world force in all its aspects. Greed and destruction, all these malevolent agencies are opposed by the sole power of a single Hindu ascetic. Yet so great is this sole power that the titans of policy cringe before it. India realizes that Mahatma Gandhi is no ordinary man. He is supported in his mission by agencies quite evident to the Oriental, but rather vague to the less mystically inclined people of the West. Yet, for the most part, the West recognizes and admires this Hindu saint. All do not understand, yet the sympathy of the greater part of humanity goes out to the little Jain ascetic, whose dream is to build a world that shall be bound together by no ties other than the silken cord of love. By religion, Gandhi is a Jain, that devout group noted for their piety and integrity, and the most respected of citizens. In his program of nonviolence, Gandhi is true to the highest tenets of his faith. His father and mother devoted their lives to charity and social reform, and when his legal practice brought Gandhi into contact with the numerous instances of unfair legislation afflicting his people, he gave up a successful practice as well as all comforts bestowed by wealth and station to share the lot of the outcasts and uphold the cause of the voiceless millions. So far he has been able to lead the vast body of his followers in paths of peace. As though by magic he has united the divergent factions of the caste-bound race into one body with a single purpose. Brahmin and Musliman stand side by side for liberty. Old feuds are forgotten, temporarily at least. Gandhi is the most common denominator of Indian thought. Is it a wonder, then, that this man who has accomplished in a few short years the miracle of consolidating India should be called Mahatma Gandhi, Gandhi the great magician? There are fakirs who charm snakes and yogins who walk in the air, but Gandhi is a wonder-worker greater than all of these, for he has charmed the soul of India, awakening it from the sleep of ages. As far back as 1922, Gandhi was India's national hero. His name was upon every man's lips, and, quoting one faithful son of the Prophet, who keeps a rug store in Jaipur, as Islam counts its years from the Hejra, so India shall measure its time from the advent of Gandhi. 100 years from now, a man shall say, "Oh, that occurred 50 years before Gandhi," and another, referring to the other circumstances, will remark, "This happened 1,000 years before Gandhi." To his millions of followers, Gandhi is the focal point of time and place. The ages circle about him, and the flower-filled gardens of the ashrama, where he sits playing his loom, are the very center of the universe. Those who live in this age are privileged to witness the deification of a man. Most of the gods we worship lived in the long ago. Thousands of years have passed since Zoroaster tended the sacred fire and Moses ascended Sinai's lofty peak. 26 centuries separate the devout Buddhist from the lifetime of the enlightened one. The 1900 years have elapsed since the Holy Nazarene preached in Galilee, but now the chemistry of our time has produced a man for whose sake this century will be remembered. Even as we watch, the humble man becomes a saint, the saint a god. Gandhi is as significant to the Occident as to the Orient. He is establishing a new standard of world integrity. He is not a ruler placed upon the throne by heredity, nor a dictator maintaining himself through force of arms. As a Brahmin pundit expressed it, Gandhi is not a man, he is a force. He is not a Hindu, he is India. He is not a good man, he is the good in every man. He is the expression, the personification of the hopes and aspirations of uncounted millions through unnumbered ages. Gandhi is the spirit of a new order, a new civilization, a new world. He is truth triumphant, humility exalted, peace victorious. To the non-Hindus this may seem hyperbole. Many will say that such things cannot be, yet they are. 300 million human beings have found in Gandhi the very substance of their own souls. He is the thing they have longed to be. They do the thing they have longed to do. Even today, Gandhiism is a reality. It is an endless marching army of half-naked figures following the little frail man whose will shall march triumphantly down the ages. The world is tired of hate, of bloodshed, and of conflict. It is weary with plotting and scheming. Falseness and shame weigh heavily upon the bruised soul of humanity. The world longs for the simple things, for gentleness, kindliness, and understanding. Power no longer intrigues, and wealth has proved but an illusion, tempting men to their own destruction. Tired of the pretense and the outer show, weary with a culmination, the world awaits a nobler impulse to lead it on. Disillusioned and disheartened, humanity has discovered in Mahatma Gandhi a new ideal. The almost childlike simplicity of his nature brings a sense of release to lives in bondage, to the complexities of an artificial culture. Gandhi is strong, frank, and natural. Picture the little Hindu wandering lost in the complicated passageways of the court of St. James, peering through his thick-lensed glasses and carrying his thermos bottle, a bag of dates in his hands. No pomp, no ceremony, no show of power, but a holy man traveling steerage and sharing with the ship's cat and the bench on which he slept at night. Yet there is no person in world diplomatic circles who takes Mahatma Gandhi lightly. It requires no guard of honor to impress the statesman with the extreme significance of Gandhi's presence. Mahatma Gandhi's strength lies both in the integrity and intensity of his conviction. He has communicated this conviction to his followers. His spirit moves in them, welding the hopes and dreams of Hinduism into a driving force. For thousands of years, Asiatic sages have preached the doctrine of non-resistance. They have preached the victories of peace, declaring only such nations and institutions to be permanent as are established in love and maintained by enlightened reason. Governments founded upon the sword shall perish by the sword, but the government founded without violence shall endure when the karmic reactions of destruction have swept away the warring factions of earth. Greater strength and courage are often required to hold back a blow than to strike one. Gandhi does not desire war and has made every effort to prevent outbreaks and violence. He has a vision, however, that extends even beyond the imminent problem of independence. Appearing as he has done at this critical point in the history of civilization, he is a message of worldwide import. No man is actually free so long as selfishness is the motivating force of human activity. Those not in bondage to some petty overlord are in servitude to their own desires and opinions. Many a man proudly say, I own this or I own that, when in truth this or that owns him. The rich do not possess things, things possess them. Rich and poor alike struggle through life in the vain effort to find happiness and power in a culmination and competition. The world is obsessed by a system of exploitation. It is striving to maintain a despotism of wealth. It has even come to believe that the universe itself is a sometimes benevolent plutocracy, and that the gods on high Olympus are what Sprague calls incarnations of fat dividends. Is this theory of selfishness that Gandhi assails? As the New York World Telegram writes, he is challenging the world Western machine civilization. If Western civilization digs its own grave with destructive competition and wars, maybe another century may see some Gandhian or Christian reign of peace and non-resistance, sovereignty over the world. The Mahatma sees the dissolution of all those unnatural bonds which now bind nations together, and in their place a world partnership, consolidated in friendship, not in force. If men will be just in their weights and measures, if nations will be honest with each other, if the world will be true to the good that it knows, war and suffering are not only at an end, but out of the ruin of the past shall arise a new earth, conceived in love and in truth, and dedicated to the proposition that the practice of right is sufficient to ensure the well-being of all living things. Mahatma Gandhi believes in right. He affirms the inevitable, supreme of right. This gives calm conviction to his words and acts. This truly holy man calls upon humanity to unite in purpose, to build with him a new world to be ruled over by that inner spirit against which none of the forces of evil can prevail. The law that governs brute creatures is not the law that should guide the human race, declared Gandhi recently, and it is the ever-increasing realization of this truth that is forcing the whole world into a revolt against materialism. Mahatma Gandhi demands a restatement of spiritual and ethical values. God has let loose an honest man, and all the world is at hazard. And a bit of a short one today,